going on, guys? T2RX6 here, back for another Transformers review. And last week we took a look at a couple of the customs I have made. I had given you a teaser of one. He is now officially completed, so I figured I would show him off. My nice Iron Fist here. Well, he's not quite done. I got to do the silver for the rims and kind of touch up what I want to pick out in vehicle mode. But the robot mode is done, at least. So I thought I would show that off. And I actually got in the mail a awesome custom I've been waiting for a very long time. Not that long, I mean like a month or so. But this is the Cheetimus Custom Diva Gigatron, which is made out of the Beasthunters Ripclaw. So I just really wanted to show this off. He does some amazing work. It almost looks like it was cast in the colors that you see on the toy. Only problems I've seen really are more drawn to the fact that this is a squishy head and it's not terribly conductive to being painted. If something kind of moves a little bit, you can get little chips, but that's okay. As long as you know what kind of paints he's using, you could always touch it up. And in this case, he uses Tamiya colors. So when I had a little chip of purple, I just gave it a little purple. And there's a couple spots I have to get. You can see like the one right to the left here. But you know, overall, really awesome custom. I highly urge you to check out his other works. He does some amazing repaints, and he's pretty reasonable for a commissioner. And yeah, it's just top-notch work. I'm going to put a link to his website down in the bottom of the review here in the chat. And because I want to show off the robot mode to this, I figured this would be a good time to actually discuss the other dragons, namely Ripclaw, which is where this Diva Gigatron has come from, Laserback, and Skystalker. So we're going to do a review on all those today, and then you'll also see Diva Gigatron in her robot mode. So let's start with Laserback here. And he's probably the weakest of them in my opinion, but he does have a big hefty chunk feel to him. He kind of reminds me a lot of an old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toy, is really what comes to mind. One thing that bugs me is you see this yellow piece here, so it's supposed to plug into the back of his head, but just feels like no matter what you do, it never just stays there. But just a small little problem, I guess. Articulation on these guys, or this particular guy I should say, is pretty much limited to what he has in his robot mode in terms of his leg motions and stuff. You could get him into some pretty decent poses. He's always looking though like he's ready to charge something with the way his head is pointed down, and unfortunately you can't go any more up. You can go more down, but then it looks even worse. There's no tail articulation, and if you really want to, I suppose, you can make this guy stand. Every single one of these dragons, I wanted to say dinosaurs, every one of these dragons actually can stand. Their feet are big enough to actually hold that. And generally, for the most part, that's what you're doing when you turn almost all of them into their robot mode, is standing them up, adjusting a few parts, and you're done. So let's actually get this guy to his robot mode, and we'll start by taking off his tail here, which becomes some sort of whip that is not all that convincing to me. The next thing that we're going to do is kind of rotate his head down just a little, and we'll pull out his back here, which Laserback, hey look, he shoots missiles, and it actually shoots with quite a bit of force. This also opens up, and we can kind of leave that like that, or you can keep it closed, whatever you want. We'll just keep that there, and then we'll move this piece up and out of the way just for now. We'll come back down to the feet here. Once that tail is moved out of the way, you can actually bring his legs together. There's a tab at the bottom here, and it just plugs right into the slot at the bottom to not give him quite as big of a stance, and his legs are pretty well done. Now, one problem I have with these guys is because they've got that jointed chicken leg, sometimes when you're doing things with them, they go like this and kind of bunch up, and it does make it a little bit more difficult to actually pose these guys in a way that you like because of how their legs are working. Next, we're going to take this and we're just going to split his chest open here, and we'll take the dragon head and we'll kind of split it down and on in like that, and then we can bring this all back together, and you can see you can actually push it together. It will lock in around the dragon head to give it a nice sturdy closed position there. So let's come back to his back here. Let's move this out of the way just so we can see what's going on. We're going to take this yellow piece and kind of fold it as far back as you can. And you kind of have free will to do with the wispy yellow pieces what you want. They are on a swivel, so you could take them and just kind of put them down there. I personally just like to make them go straight back like so, kind of with a downward angle on them like that. And there you go, he's done. And you can again put his laser back on his back like that. Oh, and he's got these arm pads that flip up. So I said he's done. I forgot to do his fists. Just kind of rotate them on around here like that. It's really nothing very tricky. Rotate the foot up, rotate the wrist down. Done. And you can give him his whip weapon, which again doesn't really do very much for me. You can take his laser thing off his back and give it to him as a gun, as you saw. But that's Laserback. He is still probably the weakest of them all, but he's not bad for the very first one that came out. He does have kind of a cool look to him, so he's not horrible. We'll put him off to the side here. And we'll go to Ripclaw, who's next. Now, Ripclaw was the second one that's released. You got a little bit of articulation on the wings to kind of position them how you want. The head, very squishy plastic, as you can see. That's what causes the paint chips on the custom one, but that's okay. Can be fixed. You do have a decent head articulation there, because it's on a ball joint. You can open up the dragon's mouth a little bit. Her legs are by far the most frustrating. I find, I don't know, maybe it's just my copy, but everything is so loose that when you're trying to maybe work on the front, then she just kind of goes into this lying down pose. And it does get very, very annoying rather quickly. But she does probably have one of the best looking dragon modes in my opinion. I think I may like her even better than Skystalker. So if you don't like the tail all the way up here, you can actually come and disjoint it and bring it down like that. It's gonna look really bad from the side, but from the back, or from the front I should say, it doesn't look too horrible if you don't want it sticking up like a scorpion's tail the whole time. Speaking of the scorpion's tail, we will talk about the little gimmick here. So what it has is this little piece here, and when you push it, it closes in. It's supposed to be like a capture claw for Transformers. Unfortunately, for pretty much deluxe sizes, it's not gonna work. It would probably work better for Cyberverse, but yeah, it just basically closes up the claw around whatever figure touches it. And if you don't like it, that can come off and it looks like that. But frankly, to distinguish between my two versions of her, I kind of like to have it on for her in the open position like that. And you can see, just kind of messing with that capture claw, she went back into her little lying down pose. That drives me up the wall. Well, let's take this off anyway, and we'll get to actual robot mode. Again, let's get ready. We'll stand her up here for the most part. We're going to take this assembly here and unpeg it, and then it comes down here to kind of fill in that leg, which is a nice little transformation piece there to really make the two legs look entirely different. So take that, flip it on down, and plug it on in like so. Then we'll come to this back piece here, kind of get her arms out of the way like that. Just bring this around to the back. Now we'll go to the dragon's head. You can grab by these little gold pieces and just kind of flip them out. We'll leave it like that for now and get her arms into position. There we go. And we'll bring that all the way down just to cover her arms, like shoulder pads. And then what we'll do is let's take this dragon head that's just sitting here, and we just bring it all the way down to the back here. It'll rotate kind of up and against the back to hide it a little bit. And then we'll come back to her arms here again. Bring her, I forgot to bring her shoulders on up. It makes it easier for when you're putting these little pads on, like so. And we'll take this, we'll rotate the claws on in all the way, leaving the little hands. Rotate the claws and just get her situated. And there we go, we've got Ripclaw in her robot mode, and she's got a very Ultron-like face. Definitely Ultron. But I really like her in her robot mode. I think she looks awesome. Articulations, all ball joints on her shoulders, nice elbow rotation. The head is a little bit limited because of the space that it's in. You can kind of get it up a little, but she kind of hides half her face and she can't really turn her head very well. Good range of motion on the legs, though I do find that, at least with mine, she's a little bit wobbly. That tail just kind of hangs like that, dragon head like so. But I think that she may actually be my favorite dragon from the Beasthunters Dragons line so far. And we'll give her a little weapon like that. And she's pretty cool. I like her a lot. So this is Skystalker, and he's the one I really wanted to like the most. I like his dragon mode the best. Unfortunately, he's probably one of the worst. In terms of transformation, he's better in Laserback, but he's so fiddly and difficult to work with that it's not even funny, because you got all these little tiny joints that, again, just like Ripclaw is doing when you're working with something, kind of trying to get things adjusted just how you want, the back legs end up doing something weird. And it's very strange because you split this like that, and then the tail's supposed to go in here, but there's nothing that locks this in position. And I think if just this were locked so there was less wiggling movement here in the legs when you're doing things, it would probably work way better. And you can see that on the tail there's a groove, and then there's kind of this like tab type thing to counter the groove and the tabs here, but it's not good enough to actually lock anything in place. So it just becomes kind of an exercise in frustration to get this guy to actually look decent in his dragon mode. The legs will just like splay out too far, or he'll go into that lying down pose. It can be done, but definitely one of my least favorites in terms of messing around with it. His head though is a saving grace. He does have some great head motion there, in terms of the neck moving around like that. Full range of motion on the head, can go 360, can open up his mouth all the way. You can see starting to show what's going on a little. You can also take this tail if you really want, and this kind of makes things a little bit better, is to flip it out of the way and squeeze these legs closed, which is part of what you need to do for robot mode. But if you close these on up with the click, the back end becomes a lot more firm and things don't move around quite as much, but the tail ends up being a little bit awkward. If you want it down, you're gonna get that big bump. If you want it to match up, it's gonna be looking up. So you gotta keep that in mind, I suppose, when you're messing around with this guy. But when it is closed like that, it does make his back legs a whole lot better and easier to work with. The wings, I wish were on a ball joint. I really wish that. Because what you end up having here is kind of an awkward way that you can display these wings, and I don't find them all that convincing. It would be cool if you could kind of rotate them in and out a little. All you do is get these two rotation joints here. Now one of them is for his gimmick here, which is this disc launcher. You kind of take it and you push on it and it just shoots it out, friction based thing, shooting the disc. It's okay, nothing spectacular. Again, take his little tail piece off here where we'll get on with the transformation, and we'll put that aside. And then we'll come to his legs here. And you just kind of make it so he's standing up again, because like I said, every dragon can stand up. And take these knee pads. I put them up. The instructions aren't really clear if they're supposed to be flipped forward or flipped up when he's in robot mode or when he's in dragon mode. I just figure you're going to see him best when he's in his robot mode, so I leave it like that. He does have these little, very little heel spurs here that really are hard to make work. So the problem is, if you want him to stand up as tall as he's going to be, you're not going to be able to make use of the heel spurs. To make use of the heel spurs, you kind of have to move it so, you know, his foot is angled enough that the heel spur is touching the ground, and at that point he starts to become a little bit too back heavy, but we'll leave it like that for now just so you can see. We'll split this apart here. We do have to put it back together, but we'll worry about that in a minute. Take his arm assembly and make sure it's in the center of the socket, because when it's in dragon mode it's supposed to be down, and then when it's in robot mode you want to move it up into the center. The reason we have this open is because that leaves us room to actually rotate this little chest piece down. And you're going to take his head and kind of angle it back as far as you can, and then close up the chest. The jaw should be within that cavity, like so. And then we're going to take his little head here and we'll flip it down very Voltron style, and then kind of adjust the helmet how you see fit, like so. Once that's all together, we can actually take this and close this. For some reason, well, now it's doing it. For whatever reason, when I didn't have the legs split apart, this thing wouldn't actually open up for me earlier. Must have just been something else going on. Anyway, we leave that like so, and his tail you can kind of flip up. I personally like to flip it down and actually use it as the heel spur, because this guy is a pain to stand with his big enormous wings. Then we're going to come down here to his hand and we'll flip this on out, and then you're going to take these little holes in the hand and plug one of them into the tab on his arm, so he's gripping his forearm there, like so. And there you've got Skystalker in his beast mode here, or his robot mode I should say. I'm losing my mind trying to mess with this guy. This is actually like the 5th or 6th take trying to get this guy to actually look halfway decent on camera. So I don't know, maybe it's working. But you can see he's just so back heavy, he just wants to fall over at every point in time. You can rotate his things on forward like this, which is what the instructions show to be missile launchers, but now he's just too front heavy and the joints aren't strong enough to support this type of thing. I mean, even if I put both joints in, he still wants to go forward, so he's just not very good. And if you try to get it so that these heel spurs back here, I mean, look at, that's a couple millimeters of height difference that you have to get to actually bring these heel spurs down like that. He just looks so squat when you actually make the heel spurs contact the ground. And they don't even really help. It's not, you know, once you've given him his enormous chicken legs, like so, to make sure his heel spurs are touching. There we go. Heel spurs are on the ground. We'll raise them up as much as we can. And still doesn't help. You really need his dragon tail as his kickstand, so to speak. And then you can actually get him to kind of stand and look a little bit nicer. Yeah, this guy is really too fiddly to be a decent toy, in my opinion. He just so back heavy. There we go. Now he's standing. Yeah, he's okay. I mean, I really wanted to like this guy the best, but I wish he had a more solid leg transformation. I wish I could just make him stand completely straight up. He just feels so weird and short when you try to make this heel spur work out for you properly. There we go. Let's see if that works any better. No, it doesn't. And my ball joints in the legs are super loose too. It's not uncommon for my Skystalker to pop his legs off when you're trying to move his legs there. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really like him in in his robot mode. You can take his little accessory here and you'll notice that he has the little ridge on here, and you can slide it right on in like that to give him a punching hand or whatever you want to consider it. But at this point, for me, he's just, I don't know, he's just not that good. There we go. I can get him to stand like this, perfectly balanced, but you can see just how kind of far forward everything is, which does make him look a little bit weird sitting on a shelf. So let's bring in the Cheetimus Custom. Here is the Diva Gigatron, and just look at the colors. She just looks phenomenal in her robot mode. So she is the leader of my Predacons for now until Predaking comes. Then she'll be the queen, I suppose. And we'll bring in the rest of the crew. And Skystalker will just keep passing out because apparently he does that. But there they are. There is the three we've gotten, and the custom Cheetimus version of Ripclaw in their robot modes. And I think they look really cool on a shelf together, and especially if you can get the certain ones that are a little bit weaker, Skystalker, if you can get him to stand, they do look good. They have a nice shelf presence of just beefy, brutish looking guys and girls, because this is a girl and so is that. So yeah, I say, I don't know, Ripclaw is definitely worth picking up. Skystalker, I have a hard time recommending him because he's just really hard to work with. And Laserback is surprisingly a fairly decent amount of fun if you like the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys. Not the transforming ones or anything like that, but this guy just feels like he fell out of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line and just happens to transform at least a little. So this is T2RX6. I am sorry Skystalker held up the review so much. Yeah. I guess I'll see you guys next week.